Did you want waffles?
Hello, everybody.
Oh.
Welcome to the show. I've been battling, absolutely at war with the settings this morning to try and get them to work. But I think it's fixed.
I kept coming out in Spanish. It was just me in Spanish the entire
It's a really
time,
weird bug.
and it was not going to be helpful at this
Oh, man.
this time slot.
All we have to do is press that SAP button. We're fine now.
It's always that. It's always one button.
Mhm.
That's usually how it is. Wait a
well,
second. What the hell? There's another person here. What?
There is. Welcome to the show, Rosie.
Wow.
Rosie, it is good to have you back.
It is
Welcome,
wonderful
my
to be
friend.
here.
For anybody who didn't have the chance to catch it, last Monday, Judy and I got to go hang out on Rosie's channel and play a very, very fun game. And it was a bit of nonsense, which is our favorite kind of session. So afterwards I was like, hey, come on the show, let's talk about the nonsense. It was a fantastic time. I had a great time on that.
It started how most shows I think should start with, like, all right, we're going to say hi and you just go.
I warned you. I'm like, okay, we're going in hot.
Yeah,
Be ready.
and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for it. That's going.
I love a stream that, like, the beginning of it is just, and we're in. Like, it's the best way to start. I feel like everybody kind of can catch up on who everybody is. And in the meantime, they're more interested in who the character is anyway. So it was a great way to jump in. Oh, man.
It was fun because I had a whole like pre-record. I love my pre-recorded intros, which everyone thinks are witchcraft, and I love it. I will never get tired of seeing people go like, "But I see you on the stream, but you're not doing that here." That's always so much fun to me. But that was why I wanted to go in hot, because I'm like, the intro is in character, so we need to be in character.
from the beginning. Yeah.
And then all the tech broke, but
the tech is always, like, in a real world game, scheduling is the big bad of all TTRPGs. In an online game, it's tech. Tech is always the worst for those games. I have one group that we play. Most of my games are 3-hour games, but that group plays a 4-hour game. And I'm pretty sure the only reason that they do a 4-hour game is that they are assuming they're going to have about 45 minutes of tech issues at the beginning.
Yep. I think the worst I've ever encountered, and we ended up not playing, was a 3-hour delay on a game.
Oh my goodness.
Because of tech issues.
Ooh.
That's a lot.
It was, because if, like, once one thing got fixed, of course something else breaks.
Right. I would no longer be, like, ready to play at that point.
No,
Like, if
after
something
like
got
half
delayed,
an hour of tech issues, you're like, nah.
Yeah. If something gets delayed more than like 45 minutes from the start, I'm like, and my energy is gone. I am no longer ready. Oh man, I can't imagine. 3 hours is insane.
3 hours.
I've had one
trying to make it work.
I've had one, like, instead of canceling, everybody's like, "Hey, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming," and it kept getting pushed back. And one
Oh.
guy who was ready to go from the start.
Mhm.
And so my weird compromise was like, okay, well, let's us just start one-on-one, or like, like, hey, let's do like housekeeping and stuff like that. And then everybody slowly trickled off and canceled. Like,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
So it was about 45 minutes in of me just like, bantering, and then it was like, all right, nobody's coming. And so it was like, do we just keep doing this for another, like, I don't know.
Was that a stream or just a regular
It
game?
was a regular game. It was
Okay.
just a
Okay.
game, but it was still like, it was still the matter of like people can't,
Mhm.
communicate it, and then it just like the slide to like, oh man, this is happening, the
Yeah.
inevitable. You can't do anything about it.
I've had a couple of times one of my groups is they often have like, oh, I'm gonna be half an hour late. And with a lot of my games, it's like, okay, well, if a couple of people are gonna be a little bit late, like we'll delay the start until everybody gets there. This group, if somebody's gonna be late, they're like, I'm gonna be a little bit late. Start without me. I'll catch up. Because they
Mhm.
don't want to take away game time from other people. And one
I
of the
love that.
players one of the players has like some classes that they've been taking, so they're always a little bit late right now.
Mhm.
But they're like, I'm gonna be like 30-45 minutes late. Start without me. And I jumped in the call like the first time they said that, to like at the beginning of the game, get into the call, and they're already sitting in the call, and I'm like, you said you were gonna be 45 minutes late. Like, what are you doing here? And I hear him come onto the mic, and it's like the worst audio, but it's just him like, hey, I'm driving. I'm not actually like in the call, but I wanted to be able to listen to the game while I was driving home. So like at least I'm caught up when we hit the ground running. It's great. I love that group so much. um, but yeah, speaking of games we love, Rosie,
Yeah.
Uno.
uh the I was ready for like, okay, this is gonna be a battle royale. I've talked about in the past the fact that like combat is one of my least favorite sections of a TTRPG. So it's like, okay, it's a battle royale. I'm sure it'll be fun because like it's Rosie. Rosie's fun. She'll put on a good show. But like I was not prepared for the level of uh nonsense, uh, with like genuinely good and unique mechanics, where I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this is this is there's a puzzle here. I can figure out like how to abuse this system to make it work for me. The one that like blew my mind was the 2D element of it.
I
Because
absorbed that too late. I absorbed that
yeah,
way too late.
Aw.
I
Mhm.
feel like I was really focused on it towards the like back half of the show, and kept bringing it up, and people kept being like, it's a 2D space, but like metaphorically it's a 2D space, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's literally a 2D space, like this changes things. um can you just talk a little bit about your setup for it, because it was such a fun mechanic to play with.
Yeah, and I'm so glad because, like, watching you all, like like, you used the word abuse, watching you all figure it out was so much fun, and, like, asking questions and, like, getting into it was really cool. The initial concept came from, my spouse, actually, who doesn't play D&D. We've talked about that, he
Mhm,
refuses to play D&D.
mhm,
But that means when I come to him with, like, D&D questions, he's not restricted by the rules or what he knows of the rules. He
mm,
can just go with, "Oh, it's a game. How do we make this fun?" And he's like, "Okay, we can't call it Smash Brothers, but," and I'm like, "Oh,
yeah,
wait, this is going in a completely different direction." He's
and
like, "You said it's
remind me what you did call it.
Mega Mush Mamas."
I I loved that because I knew every time I heard it or I needed to say it, I was gonna say it different every time.
And y'all
I
did, which was so funny.
It's so good though. It does sound like Super Smash Brothers and Mega Mush Mamas both have um very sexual sounding names.
I didn't want to say that, but yes.
But I think and it could just be that I've played Super Smash Brothers for forever. Mega Mush Mamas sounds more sexual to me.
It's got very Death by Snoo Snoo vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I think there's there's an episode of I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where they just keep referring to sex as I can't remember if it's mush or smush, but
Oh.
it's one of those
Something
two.
like that.
And
Yeah.
so my brain immediately had that association when you said like Mega Mush Mamas, and I was like,
Oh no. I am missing that vital context.
oh man. Yeah, that's great. I love you because you messaged. I don't remember if you messaged the whole group or if you just messaged Junie and I, um, like a month ago when you were planning.
Yeah.
And you were like, "You're not ready for the
Yes.
for the arena that like Mr. B has created for you."
Mhm.
And I was like, what does that mean?" Like,
And you weren't.
Nope.
It was so good. I had so much fun with it. I felt so bad about the tech issues.
Oh
Because
my gosh.
like I know as a
Yeah.
GM that's so hard to like cope with in the moment.
Right, while also trying to run a game, and in that moment, I was so glad because it was a battle royale, y'all didn't need a lot of narration or guidance, and I was able to hear you the whole time, so if you had a question, I could just, like, quickly throw it into the text chat,
Mm-hmm.
but, like and I feel weird for, like, being grateful for that, but if it was going to fail that catastrophically on any session, I'm glad it's the one where I had to talk the least.
Yeah. Because it wasn't narratively driven. It wasn't something where you had to be
No,
like, oh, like you've entered the room. Let me describe the room. Let me just do like
right.
it was really just top of initiative when the sprinkles the dragon attacks.
Sprinkles!
And
We'll
then
talk about sprinkles in a
if
sec.
we
Yeah.
needed a like a GM ruling on something.
Right.
But yeah, there were yeah, I like the options.
Now there was a narrative. There was a whole,
Mhm.
like, spiel at like, you saw how, like,
Yeah.
I was dressed. There was a whole personality. There
Mhm.
was going to be, like,
Those lights.
yeah, there was gonna be there were lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was going to be so much more to it, like and the way I think I sort of tweaked that in the moment was giving each of the KO'd players, like, one last thing they could do, which,
Mhm.
Junie, you took that and ran with it in the most spectacular way, and I
I
loved
did
that.
not know what to do.
It was
It
great.
was a panic math was a theme for the evening where if
Yes.
any of us had to do any sort of simple addition or logistical solution in the moment, it didn't matter if there was 8 people. There's always that moment where you could say you're thinking about your move, but then when it is your move, you're like, "Oh, okay. So what am I playing? Are we playing D&D?" And it's just like it's always like we're brand new. And even though I knew, okay, there's something I can do, Hunter was a juggernaut. There was another juggernaut. There was it was an oops all barbarian druids. It wasn't, but like
It was, though.
more than one is
More than
oops all
half.
yeah, more than
There
one
were only 2 of us
barbarian
that were
There
barbarian
were
druids.
3.
Was
There were
there a
3 of
third?
I
us.
there was another
No.
barbarian.
There was another
They didn't get they
barbarian, but they
never
weren't
wild
druid.
shaped because they died so early.
Oh, they were also a barbarian druid?
I believe they had 1 level.
Nice.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Then yeah.
so
So I just thought it was the 2, but still, like, it was like, okay, they're gonna like just soak up all this damage. Like, so they're this,
That
but
was
I
the
didn't want to.
plan.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, but
I got ganked.
I attacked. I remember I attacked Hunter like as a tactic because I was like, if everybody's gonna pile on Hunter, I have splash damage. I can hurt everybody around Hunter. That was my idea.
Mhm.
But I was like, well, I don't want to like keep dogpiling on Hunter. Like, what can I do to just really like you want to be dynamic in a moment like that. You know what I mean? Everybody's used to like, I go up, I sneak attack, I go up, I hit, I go up and I, smash. And it's just like, all right, can I be a disco ball of death? I don't know.
Yes.
You handled that well. And this is I think I whined, but I accepted. There is a thing that I know I have to remind myself, and everybody has to remind themselves, every table's different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want to talk to you about the one ruling that I had a
Okay.
smidge of a really. It
Oh,
was
good. I'm glad you have one, because I also have one that I got out of that game and I'm like, that was so much fun. I had such a great time. I am still upset.
I have a grievance. Okay.
so, and it was this. It was, if somebody's trying to grab somebody or
Mhm.
do something like that, in my
Mhm.
head, that is like an attack action because they have to
Yes.
physically
Oh,
do a
mhm.
thing, right?
A
So
grapple
I
is
was
a special attack. Yeah.
correct,
Mhm.
and I think this was me living 3D in a 2D space, right? So in my head, I'm hovering away from platforms. I was flying at the moment. A bear jumps on me, right? And is going to wrestle me to the ground. And I'm thinking, great, I'm going to take fall damage.
So entertaining for people who have no
No, yeah.
Yeah,
So
you have
I'm,
no
I'm,
this, have
I'm
no
a
idea.
nerdy bookstore dragon, right? Flying, right? And I was hovering like, hold my
Yeah.
time powers or whatever. And then a bear jumps on me, right?
From the top ropes.
Yes. So I'm like, oh, they're going to take me to the ground. But no. And you gave them a good moment. It was a good moment.
It was a
It
great
was
moment.
as a GM and me, I was pissed. But it was a fantastic moment to watch.
It was so evident on your
It-
face too.
Because it was not only a bear jumped on me, right? They Dragon Ball Z fought me to the ground, which was epic as hell. Like, to go, it's just like, I'm gonna take you down, and before we hit the ground, I'm gonna hit you 12 times, right? So they pummeled me into the ground, and so like they Mortal Kombat fatality'd me into the ground, which
Mhm.
was epic. And I was like, I think they should have only been able to grab me and slam me to the ground, so
Yeah.
I should have like 2 HP left. I died, but
Yeah, because you got the damage of like being taken to the ground and
Right.
a bite, and I think 2 claws.
yeah, it
Right.
was mid-air strike. It was a Super Smash Brothers combo.
Yeah.
Where from the
Yeah.
air they went ba 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 ba, and then down B slammed me into the ground.
Mhm.
And I think that's where it started to hit me. I'm living 3D in a 2D space, because I was like, I'm up there. They have to use everything to drag me down. So they had to jump to me. And no, they didn't have to jump to me. They just have to move
just
over a
fell.
pixel and go
Yeah.
down. And that was where my brain wasn't absorbing that. So in my
Mhm.
head, I'm like trying to apply normal rules and normal logic to you had already established this is not what it is. If this was a 3D space, I would have been like, no, I'm leaving. And I was just like, I'm just there. She just had to like numbers, like, like old school pixel go to the side. And then I couldn't say anything. What am I going to say? It doesn't make any, like, hey, no, but if I Google 3D space, right? And it's like, that has nothing to, I've listened to podcasts where they talk about like how against, like they are of people Googling anything at a table. Because it's just like, that doesn't apply to, a stat block of a creature necessarily, because that's a normal panther. This is this stat block.
Yeah.
And that might not apply to the table and the world that the GM has established. One of the on my notes, one of the first things I have is me like trying to immediately throw somebody off
Yeah.
the thing, and you were ready for it.
For anybody who didn't watch the show, Junie's immediate first reaction, like, it's my turn. Okay.
I was like
throw someone
second
off
to
the
last at
map.
the initiative of
Yeah.
8 people. So I was like, I'm pretty sure nobody's doing
Yeah.
this, but I think everybody's fighting each other. But
I
we
want to
should
try
play
something.
smart. We should play smarter, not harder here. There's a lot of people here. But immediately after me yeeting somebody off the level, they come out another part of the level.
Yep.
What was going through your head when you were like planning those type of mechanics? And was there anything that you'd kind of planned that we didn't do?
Ooh,
Ooh.
I will say, just to answer that second question first,
Mhm.
y'all touched everything on that map.
Okay.
You all like you all I love watching people figure stuff out, puzzle things out, and there was a reason there was a big red button. Who doesn't want to press a big red button? I knew people were going to want to toss people off the edge because that's what you do in Super Smash Brothers. My logic there was that's too easy of a way to whittle down the numbers, and I wanted the game to
Mhm.
last longer, and it lasted a little too long. Because y'all are amazing at what you do, the whole group, as far as like avoiding or mitigating damage or dealing out tons of damage. And so for me, I'm like, why don't we just make it Pac-Man rules? You fall off one edge of the map, you pop out the other side. But what happens if you pop out in the sky? You're going to fall. So there
Mhm.
was some fall damage calculated there.
Mhm.
But that was one of the more fun things to sort of like kick around as far as developing a mechanic and making sure it was fair and watching you all tear through that because like Hunter, you even went diagonal at one point, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's interesting," but we've already established that's a mechanic of this
Yeah.
map, so yeah, let's play around with that.
I
It was
I was
super fun.
positive I was positive that they were gonna die, and that a new them was gonna pop up, but with like a number like going from 3 to 2. Like
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought we were gonna have stocks, and I was like, we're gonna have to push Hunter off this map. Like I was already
Dude,
ready. I
I
was we're gonna have to somehow trip this dinosaur off the map somehow.
I will say if you do a because I thought about that same thing.
Mhm.
If you do it as a like a lower level battle royale, you could absolutely do like okay, you have like uh 3 lives or whatever,
Right.
but do if you lose a life you start back at the top and you mark yourself as having taken a long rest, so like wizards or whatever would get their
Yeah.
full spell slots back at the end of a life, because then
Mhm.
it brings in this whole other mechanic of
This
like,
whole
Oh,
new
oh,
strategy,
that's
yeah.
just a wizard.
okay, well
That's just a
I'm
wizard like going like bye y'all, and then
right.
like
Like I'm out of
he
spell slots. I'm useless
yeah.
now. Like might
Mhm.
as well like lose a life
Re-up
in
it,
exchange
yeah.
for it. But like that's a gamble. Am I gonna do I want to do like lose the life? It's a like there's so many different ways you could play with the elements there
Mhm.
that I find very fascinating. I love the concept of bringing video game logic into Dungeons and Dragons. It's so fun.
It
Um,
was so much fun, and to, like, your point, you realizing that it was a 2D space with some 3D aspects, like, it's an angled view, like
mhm,
most fighter platformers. So, like, there was that whole ground floor area that you could move laterally,
mhm,
but everything reacted and worked as if it was two-dimensional, to the
mhm.
point of getting dropped down on by a bear just because 'cause they're
Right.
in the same column as you
And
on the grid.
it was the perfect combination of the two.
Mhm.
Of like I want to be able to like go around this thing, you can. But also it's a 2D view, so like things have the ability to work in weird ways.
Yeah.
Like being being able uh to attempt to gust of wind, and or not gust of wind, yeah, I think it was gust of wind, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were
The
doing Gust
wind
of Wind.
tunnel.
But
It was a
to
big
be able to
old
attempt, I'm
energy
going to
beam, yeah.
angle it this way to hopefully throw them off of the
Yeet
screen
them off.
was so fun for me.
Mhm.
um I feel like there oftentimes when I finish a like a one shot stream or anything like that, like I had this interact I had this same situation at the end of the Christmas one shot that we did,
Oh.
um
Mhm.
of getting to the end and being like, ooh, I wish I had done X, or I
Mhm.
wish I had like I would have done this differently if I were to do it again, or like I constantly after a game will take notes of if I ever run this again, I would change A, B, and C.
Mhm.
Did you have anything like that at the end of this one?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I will say I wish I had had like I wrote a guide after the
Mhm.
fact. I wish I'd had that on hand because
Yeah.
I had it just all in my head, and I had like roll tables and stuff for like sprinkles and the big red button and which items would populate at the beginning of each round. The power ups were also a really fun sort of
I liked
yoink
the
from
power-ups a
Super
lot.
Smash
Yeah, that
Brothers.
was good.
Yeah. I
But
I have a lot
yeah,
of friends who are like, we turn all the items off in Smash Brothers,
what fun
people,
is
and I'm
I
like,
that?
think
I'm
that
like,
is.
if you turn all the items off, I am not playing because I have no skill, but I'm good at seeing an item pop up and running over and
Mhm.
using it as quickly as possible. And they're like,
I
that's
already
why we
yeah.
don't use them because it allows for like no skill people to just play. And I'm like, yeah, because I want to play the game with y'all. Like, why are you excluding me?
Why are you being mean?
Um,
Do you have like a story where it's like a nightmare Smash Brothers story? I feel
I
like
feel
people
like
do.
most people have that one experience.
I've only
Um,
played Smash Brothers once,
oh really?
and I only won because of the items.
The items are the best part,
They're
man.
the best
I
part.
love them.
Like I had a friend who's were not dating somebody, but the person was like, obviously trying to show off for their other friend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
so his logic was, I'm gonna destroy this other male in Smash
Ah.
Brothers. Like, and it was very like aggressive. I've seen people take it seriously, but like not like 1v1, no items, flat platform,
Oh,
and then like
Ugh.
trash talk
that sounds
any
horrible.
choices. Yeah, and then like it's just like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, man, it's a game. I want it to be Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm ready to leave now. Yeah, that guy sucks. Like, I don't know if you want to date him. Like, he sucks.
I think my worst experience was the first time that I ever played it on the Switch.
Mhm.
Because I played on the Wii a lot, and like loved it on the Wii. But when I went over to hang out with my brother and some of his friends, and played it on the Switch, and all of them played all of the time. They played constantly, and I had never played and had never played on the
Did they
Switch.
use GameCube
Um,
controllers?
yeah, they had their own GameCube controllers that are like,
Yeah.
oh, that's Griff's, that's Chops. The
They had code names. It just sounded like code names.
but my brother, he we used to joke that he was a college athlete, because he was on his college's like esports team, like played competitively for Smash. And so
That's wild.
he played on the Smash team at his college, and so it was like he was very very good, and he would play as the Animal Crossing villager.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
Animal Crossing villager can just like grab your attacks, and then like throw them back at you, and it's like that's a nightmare. Like, as somebody who's not good at the game, and every attack I launch at him is just like grabbed and here you go.
Mhm.
That's horrifying. I like it was a fun night because like that's a fun group of guys, but the I don't think I ever scored higher than like second to last place, because they were so much better than I was. I ended up resorting to just like, I will hide until I see an item, and I will run and I grab the item, and then I run and hide again, just to try and survive. Because if I got into a fight with anybody, I was not doing well.
Rosie, when you played, who did you play?
I'm
You
trying
will
to
be
remember.
judged. Be
I
careful.
will be judged.
I
You'll be
have
judged
an
not by
I
me,
have
just the world.
I
I
have an
know I've definitely played as
immediate
Kirby.
like. Did you say Kirby?
Yeah.
I've definitely played as Kirby. I
I
know
was
I've picked other
I was
ones.
about to say I have an immediate vibe of Kirby from you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, it's probably Kirby. Like, I know I
Because
like
Kirby
Kirby.
is such a good, like, I don't
Oh,
want to
he's a
deal with
great
this, so I'm just
character.
gonna shoot.
Yeah,
You're done.
yeah.
I need a
Yeah,
break for like half a
He
I
second.
can
don't
e-
like
he can e-
falling.
he can either like
Yeah.
shield, or
Oh
he can
yeah, and
just
he's
go,
really
I'm
good
just
at not
gonna
falling.
fly
Yeah.
away.
I
Yeah.
don't like falling. That's a real life
No.
Junie fear. And I was
Yeah.
like, and I
Me
just
too.
like whoop, whoop,
Yeah.
whoop. All
Mhm.
right, here I go.
No, I
It's
distinctly
one of the
remember
reasons I
playing
used to
Kirby
play as
because the
Pit.
person got mad at me because I never could fall. And they're like, "You're
Hmm.
cheating." I'm like, "I'm playing the character I have. I don't know enough how to cheat." Like, what do you mean?
There's something that made me I just thought about, like, if we think about like mechanics transferring over to like
Mm.
a game, um in Smash Brothers there's usually like, there's your like A, B, like, like 2 or 3 buttons, however many buttons, and then the combination of like up, down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh if you had to think of like we're making like a D&D Smash Brothers type of thing where it's like, our favorite characters from like across like the spectrum or you've seen,
Ooh.
Mhm.
which one of your characters would you want to see in
Oh
that? And
man.
like if you had to give them 2 to 4 moves.
Oh my gosh.
Because if you think about it, it's like, it's like, oh, there's punch, but if I hit like, it's like, oh, attack, but then if I hit up attack, that's my superiority die. You know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah.
had to go like, I can only think of 4 features, moves, something like that. Like, how would you
That's
whittle it
such a
down?
good
Ooh.
question.
You know what I mean? Rosie, who was your favorite? Like, I hate saying it like this, but who's your favorite child among your characters?
Among my
And
characters. Oh my god. Oh,
yeah,
could
if
you
you had to
imagine
look at,
Hecate in Smash?
I almost introduced you today as Rosie Voithos. I swear to God, I almost wrote on the thing and I didn't. And I was like, that might be too deep of a cut. But
Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah,
Oh
imagine
man.
Hecate and like give Hecate 4 moves. It's like,
Oh my gosh. Because like 3 of them would be like really sparkly nice moves, and then there'd be like one
one dark
Eldritch
ass.
Death
Yeah.
move.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Because
Oh
it'd be like
man.
a Jello move, and there'd
Right.
be like a cookbook move,
Oh, the
and
Jello moves. It'd be so like, it'd be one of those things where it's like, yo, I don't fully understand this like combination of things. It's like, no, if you read it or you watch, you
yeah,
would
there's some
If you
deep
understand.
lore
if you look
there.
at the
There's some deep
source
lore there.
material, oh
Oh,
man.
I get that there's a bird, so like, okay, I get the feathers, and maybe the darkness. There's a Jello thing that heals you, and she eats it like I don't understand. Like it's real extra. I don't know if it's a
Maximus would
taunt.
have like a new form that is only unlocked after you've lost your first life. Like
Oh,
you
the
lose your
angsty
first
Mm.
life and then you
form.
come back and you have some like werewolfy powers.
It's like
Yeah, no,
Dark Blade.
yeah. Max would have a transformation like either that or like, oh, I gotta save up 3 like some games have like a bar you have to
Yeah.
fill, and then you
Yeah.
have to use all 3, but then you transform, and it's like a rage mode type of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh man.
Hiroko would just be like the default sword player in
Mm.
like every type of game. There's always like a character that, like slashes up, slashes down, has like a wave slash, and I'm
Mhm.
just like he would just be that one. Like he'd be fairly generic in that regard.
It's still a 6 foot tall chicken. Like,
Yeah.
This is true. Chicken person.
Now I'm
oh,
just
that's
thinking through
funny.
all of my like old
I know,
D&D
right?
characters of like, okay, well if I was gonna do something like crazy with them, what would it be? And
Mhm.
what stuff from them translates well into like a video game mechanic?
Right.
Um the one that I think fits the best is my first D&D character had a magic item called lovingly referred to as the stick of death, which was when I first started playing it with him, he didn't have any weapons or anything. He just had like a literal stick that he had like picked up in the forest, and like that was his only weapon. And then as he like killed things, he was attaching like claws and fangs from those creatures to the
Yeah.
stick, so that it did a little bit more damage. And over time I got that like enchanted. I poured an insane amount of gold into getting it enchanted, and like it became kind of an artifact type item. But one of the abilities of that item was when he killed something with it, um if he took like claws or fangs or something like that from the creature and attached it to the stick, it would deal double damage against any creatures of that type moving forward. So I could see him having an ability in like a video game type setting where if he's already killed that character, he does extra damage against them, like in future fights. That would be fun. I would like that mechanic. I wouldn't like playing against that mechanic, but I would enjoy being the one who had it.
Isn't that always the way with like OP mechanics?
Yeah.
I don't want to be on the receiving end of that, but it's really cool.
100%.
I'm the opposite, y'all. I usually like being hit with that because then we all think best in that like split second when the like right before midnight when the paper's due type of situation.
Ooh.
So I'm thinking of like, oh, that's OP. I would never be able to deal with it or something like that. And then I know if I was put in the moment, like I feel like that's when it's just like I can't do it, but in the moment, Junie might. He might have the power. I have faith in him, not me. I can't do this right now, but maybe he could. I've like jotted down like 4 or 5 questions because I know I'm gonna forget them. But did you have any ideas for items or mechanics that you didn't get to put in the game because of time or too like too big, I mean, it's like, oh, we couldn't pull that off with what we had, the capabilities at the time. But is there anything you would like, I really wish I could have, or it would have been cool to blank?
If we had had more time, I would have loved to have implemented some sort of like multiple KO system, like we had discussed earlier. I didn't think we would have time, especially with 8 characters. If you had a smaller battlefield of like maybe 4, I could see that working a lot better. So that's something that I had absolutely considered, but had to kind of cut because I knew it was going to be a long battle anyway. Um,
Well, and
you
you
also,
kind of
yeah,
did it with the like when we got into the like sudden death mode, you gave me like
yeah, like
I was down making death saves and you were like, here's 1 hit point.
yeah,
So
fight.
you did kind of like second life. And another player got twice was down making
Yeah,
death
oh
saves
my
and got nat
gosh,
20'd up
both
with 1 hit
times.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still died.
Still died, but like hey, a valiant effort.
Mhm. Now that was one of the things that I really wanted to find a way to incorporate, but I'm like, there's too
It's
many
hard.
people. If it was like
Yeah.
half that many, it probably could have worked. But I wanted to have as many of my friends fight as possible. You see my dilemma.
I know it was a struggle to like the even the beefiest of PCs, you know what I mean? Just like having like that many inputs, outputs, and the encoding is
Yeah.
tricky. I was thinking because I have a question. It was like more or less players. Would you do it again with less players or more in the sense of what if it was Hunter's pitched something like this before, doing like a longer stream
Mhm.
with X amount of people, but as people are knocked out, other people join.
Yeah.
So what if
Ooh.
it was like everybody's on call in the wings and it's just like, hey, block out this amount of time. You won't be on the call the entire time. You have to wait for somebody to get their butt
Get their
kicked.
butt kicked.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because then at
Ooh.
that point, like you could theoretically go more people. Then it's just a
Mhm.
matter of like, how many people can I fit in this thing? And oh man, I know somebody said they're only available for like the last 2 hours, so like,
Make
or
sure
the
they're
this amount of
further
time, I need to
down.
kill
Yeah.
them earlier. And you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like not railroady, but it's just like, when you have to kill somebody or somebody might
Mhm.
dramatically like, take this moment to finale.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I think something you would really enjoy, and I would love to hear what your ideas would be for. You said something about different levels, like smaller
Yeah.
levels, right?
Mhm.
Something that like in Dragon Ball Z games they do a lot is somebody get hit so in Mortal Kombat, somebody gets hit so hard they fly to a different level. It's just you literally get hit through a wall and now you're in this other level, and you could select that level into this level selection, but you could scene transition by just hitting them so hard. So if you just had to rapid fire, if you like when you were dreaming up your
Ooh.
little thing, what would be some like 8-bit set locations you would have liked to play with?
Oh my
That's
gosh,
great.
because I feel I'm with a very generic one. I'm like, this is basic
But if you go
castle
to like
climb,
a
like,
throne room, a
yeah,
volcano,
yeah,
you know
no,
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
volcano was definitely on the
You
table
gotta
for
volcano's
the
have a
good.
lava
longest
level.
time.
Mm-hmm.
There was gonna like, I had thought about, like, an aquatic aspect to it because
Yeah.
that would have added a whole new thing, having, like, swim speeds and stuff like that.
Oh, I would
Full
have
on
dominated.
just yeah, you would have as, what were you, an
I was a
Aquian or
Triton.
Triton? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just all platforms, no ground could have been fun.
Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that one.
I really like the idea of that because then people are falling left and right off the map.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dealing with that mechanic
That
could
one
be
you
really
almost
fun.
have to have bonus lives.
Yeah, for sure. That would definitely have changed
That a
how
Mario
I.
or a Mario Kart like dude on a cloud that fishes you up.
Oh yeah. Oh, I should know his name. I don't, but
I don't know either.
yeah.
It's
Uh,
something real dumb, and I know I'm gonna get mad.
I wonder, like, if you could do extra lives as like items.
Oh, I did think
Um,
about that,
that are essentially something like a you know how orcs have that like relentless endurance or whatever it's
which we saw.
where like
Yeah.
you would get taken down and then you do have one hit point like after you've hit
Mhm.
zero. You could do that where it's like these extra lives, but it's just like you get like a healing potion of hit points back when you
Yeah.
die.
Mhm.
That'd be interesting because then you could have them like popping up and people just like fighting to get to
Yeah.
those items. That's fun. I
I do
like
think
the
having items and power-ups was an essential part of what I
yeah.
wanted this game to be. So having those like populate one at the beginning of the game, there were two available from the start.
Hmm.
The button had a chance to populate items or just sprinkles would come through.
Mm.
And then having one pop up at the beginning of each round, I thought was
Hmm.
fun because it gave people other things to focus on besides just the fighting.
Yeah.
What
I got to eat a
items
potion as a dinosaur.
You did.
that yeah, oh, that was good. And
Black.
that's how I would yeah. That always makes the debate that I never know what to do. Are potion bottles or are
Hmm.
they like weird magical glass that like because people are like, oh, the bottles are broken, and I'm like, no, they're hardy, or no, you break it, because I've definitely let somebody
Hmm.
shatter a bottle for
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
um I know whenever I needed to do like a quickie throwing mechanic or something, like I've done Mario Kart with like a
Yep.
physical game, and then I would have the squares be like cantrips, spells, or like an item, but it's a one-off item.
Mm.
So if in the setting that you have here, what do you think would have been, knowing the way that everything panned out?
Mhm.
What do you think some spells or items that would have been like disintegrated in one shot? You know what I mean? So if it's like, oh, it's
Mm.
a +3 sword, but like what sort of items or spells do you think would have like killed as a random drop in this
Any
game?
sort of fly or levitate, I think would have
Hmm.
been good to throw
Mm,
in there, especially
Yeah.
with how like height worked in this particular map. Um, I know like when I have like the little list, I only did 6 items because I wanted
mhm,
it to be concise. I didn't want to
Hmm.
go over the top. So I made sure there were at least 2 healing items because that was going to be a big thing when hit points are what determines success in this game.
mhm.
Um, Party Popper was a free use of chromatic orb, and I don't think they ever used it.
I don't think they used it. Yeah.
But that was
No,
just like a
they
free
did, but
spell.
they missed.
Oh,
Oh.
that's a shame. Then there was the Mega Mush Mallet,
Hmm. Which
The
was
mount.
great.
which
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
had a chance to break with each use. So I don't
Mhm.
know
That was
if
good.
I did it differently, I would have it just be one use, but I liked having it be something that she could use over and over until she broke it. And at
Yeah.
that point, she'd already thrown her main weapon
Yes.
That
away.
was
The
I
yeah.
was
fact
like,
that she
"Oh
threw away the
no."
weapon immediately was like, "Oh, I
Immediately.
have a new weapon. Don't need this
You
anymore."
don't
But
know anything
Like
about this new
you
weapon.
you don't have to say that. Like you don't have to.
no, I
Like
respected that, and I thought it was on purpose because we had already established when something falls off, it comes around, and I know
Which it
that
did.
it
Mhm.
Yeah.
we came into play of like, oh, where'd the axe go? So I was just like, I thought that was intentional of like, haha, I see what's going on there. And they did do the whole description of pulling out their hand axes, which I
Yeah.
forgot, because when they did describe an attack, I just imagined them punching for a second, and I was like, what are you hitting with? And it's like, my hand axes. I was like, that's right, because I just imagined like it's just like, I'm gonna bop you.
Oh
Uh
my gosh. Yeah, that was really fun to play with. And then like getting silly with like Control Z and Firewall,
Mhm.
which have intrinsically digital like connotations, because there was this whole narrative of this is the Feywild leaking into the digital world a little
Right.
bit.
mhm.
they're gonna start taking some of those like names and connotations and like reabsorbing them into stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was fun. But
I
still
have
having like actual useful
I
application.
have I have some items that I want to pitch when we do this
Yes.
again. Little bubble shields that are just temporary hit points.
Mhm.
I know that they're like you could have like platforms that they respawn almost every turn. Somebody could try to camp them. So I'm gonna get him because he's camping there, type of thing. But there was aside with the button did some bopping, but it did spawn a thing one time, right? It did spawn like a
Yeah,
health
the
potion
button
time.
had 6 possible
Yeah.
outcomes. And 2 of them were sprinkles, and 1 was the little spatulas of doom, and then 2 were the item would
It's
either
funny that the
spawn near
spatula
you.
is only on there once, but it
I
is
was about
the
to say I
item that
thought the
we saw the
spatula was
most.
more than once. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, the spatula happened more than once, but that was because it was based on rolls, and that person
Mhm.
happened
Yeah.
to roll
Mhm.
spatula twice, and it killed them the second time,
Mhm. Yep.
which was so poetic, and I loved
It
the
was
ending to that game.
that was good.
Uh,
Uh
yeah.
what one thing I know that I would have because it's one of those things where it's like the high risk high reward thing because they were risking everything
Mhm.
for that button. And this is trust because we all trusted you.
Yeah.
One of those things is just janking up our controller a little bit. And it's something where one thing I like flavoring a lot is if there's ever a confusion situation, a fail of a wisdom save,
Mhm.
or if somebody role plays something a certain way, but the role doesn't necessarily go with it,
Mhm.
is like, oh, you have these little birds flying around your head.
Mhm.
And then it's just like, what happens is like, I don't know, just what are you gonna do? And then they describe their whole move, and then I'm like, all right, we'll roll and we'll just see how it goes because then it's just they're confused at that point. At this point, you go, it's like, well, you actually go this way and you hit this guy, and it's like,
That would be
Oh,
so
you know what I
funny.
mean? Like a
Yeah.
confusion. So you either invert their controls, whatever the confusion you want to do is, but like you jank up
Mhm.
their controls, and who doesn't love a good body swap? Just
I
imagine
a body swap is
Sending-
very good.
Body
imagine just
swap
going.
is
It's
very
like,
good.
oh dang, okay. Listen, I've sent 2 of you links. These are your character sheets right now. It's like, okay, I'm a druid. I'm a druid dinosaur right now, y'all. Please
Learn
get
this
off me.
sheet immediately.
Yeah.
What about in the same vein as the like confusion type thing? You could just give Joy-Con drift, where
Ooh.
you can only move left.
Ooh.
Like that is the only direction you can move in. Like you cannot move. Kind of like how if you're like if you have fear, you can't move towards the source of your fear.
Right.
But it's just you can only go left.
That's
So
funny.
then if you like go off the stage on
You
the
could
left,
eventually come back.
you'll come back, but you have to go all the way left to go right.
That's how I like using bestow curse. Because
Mhm.
like the one where it's like you get to choose a thing. My thing is always like they're afraid of their weapon. They're afraid of
Oh.
like going left, where it's like, okay, that's dumb. And I was like, okay, well, I'm running that way. Or like once I was in a cave and there was mushrooms, I want to make them afraid of mushrooms. So they're not afraid of me, but they're afraid of everything that's on the ground type of
Right.
thing. What if they were afraid of video games? Then they would have had an existential crisis. And it's just like, they
You're
spend the
afraid
term
of
paralyzed by their own existence.
you're afraid of living in a 2D world.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, there's so many different like possible items that you could do. I
Right.
would have in Baldur's Gate, there's one of the illithid powers that you can get is it's like concentration blast or something like that, where like you have to be concentrating on a spell in order to use it, and then but you can like break somebody else's concentration on a spell.
Mhm.
I would have killed for something that would allow me to like break the concentration on a
For
spell.
Moonbeam.
Dude, Moonbeam was so frustrating.
Mhm.
That is
That was
the one that was like when I got off the call, I was like, I had fun. I'm mad about that. That was frustrating. Like the fact that
Oh my gosh.
it just saps my core class abilities.
Mhm.
Like that's real frustrating.
Aw.
I will
I
say
will
I've never seen Gust used
in that way.
more frequently or effectively. It's always, I feel like whenever I've seen Gust used, people are like, well, I used a spell slot.
Made some air. Yeah.
I did a
Well,
thing.
and
Great.
there's a difference between gust, which is just like a little like foof, and
Oh,
like
well, yeah,
gust
yeah,
of
yeah.
wind,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
wind
Yeah.
tunnel.
That's what I mean. Like I've seen that used. I've seen
Right.
the wind tunnel used where they're like, it's used and then people go around it. It's like, but
And a
it was a
3D
two
space, you would just go
exactly.
around.
I was
Right.
just
Yeah.
like, it was brilliant. It was really good.
I will say, if
Um,
just like because you had mentioned Baldur's Gate, the Iron Flask almost made it onto the item list,
that would have
Oh
been
but I
my
amazing.
did not want to make a beholder
A
sprite.
2D,
Oh, it would have
yeah.
been
Oh,
so good.
that
It would have
though.
been
so
so
good.
cool, but I'm like,
Oh.
I've already made like character sprites for everyone. I
Mhm.
made the dragon thing. I've made all these item sprites. I've made this map. I'm like, I don't want to make another thing.
Oh man,
It
that
would have
would've
been fun
amazing.
though. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
See, that's one I would have liked to have had if I had had more time, bandwidth, energy,
Mhm.
etc.
The moonbeam spell, because we got to
Mhm.
talk about this. This is
Mhm.
a controversy.
Oh.
The fact that moonbeam, like it was so for anybody who didn't watch, two of us were playing druids. One of the things that is on moonbeam is that shape changers have disadvantage on the saving throw against it, and also if they fail the roll, they immediately revert to their like original form. As a druid, this is a nightmare, because two things. One, it just immediately got rid of wild shape. Like wild shape became an X resource. It was just immediately all of my uses of wild shape were gone because I was like at the top of their turn, they just put me into moonbeam, and then I'm like at the top of my turn, I've lost my wild shape. The thing that I want to discuss is, do you think, like looking back on it,
Mhm.
do you think that if you were to do it again, you would still classify druid as a shape changer, like period? And do you think that you would still classify druid as a shape changer if they're not in wild shape?
Ooh, that was a tough one because, like, as it was happening, I was like furiously Googling.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay, there's no clear answer. I'm just gonna make a snap decision. Yes, because it is a change of your actual
Sure.
form, you have shape shifted, you have shape
Sure.
changed.
100%.
Yeah. I think I would still hold to that.
Mhm.
If for nothing else, then it made the strategy that all the druids had
Mhm.
very interesting in that moment.
Mhm.
Because
I
again, most of the playfield was druids
Right.
of
As
some
a
sort.
as a game, it was like, yes, this
Mhm.
is a great story. The it raises interesting questions for
Mhm.
things like polymorph. Like
Yeah.
if you are a like a polymorphed character, like if you cast you're a powerful wizard, you cast like true polymorph on yourself, and now you're a dragon or something like that, and somebody hits you with moonbeam, which is a second level spell, like if you fail that save, you turn back into the person. Like there's weird
Ooh.
ramifications that come in
Yeah.
for it. And so my like, because I went down a whole rabbit hole of like looking into it afterwards, because there's shape changers, which are things like a doppelganger, a werewolf, like
Right.
things that like as part of their nature they change. And then
Mhm.
there's like the abilities and spells of like a druid or a wizard or something like that. And so it's very like there's interesting
Yeah.
like ramifications to how do you classify that. It's one of those things where it's like in
Ooh.
5th edition D&D, there are those
There's official,
areas
yeah.
where
There's the
there are
official
like
ruling, yeah.
there are weird areas of spells that are like, does this count, or is this like a middle area? But yeah, it was an interesting one of like, because I 100% totally agree with your ruling in the moment. But it's a like, how does that work? Like, it's an
Right.
interesting thing for like in the future. Like if you were in a home game and you are like a druid in a game, and like an enemy just has moonbeam and starts using up your wild shapes, because it's not just that the wild shape resource is gone, because that sucks, but like it is what it is.
Yeah.
One of my friends compared it to if you used like calm emotions on a barbarian to get
Oh,
rid of
that's
their
raging.
rage.
So then the
Um,
rage goes away. Yeah.
and it's like, okay, yeah, sure, like I get that. Um, so it's like but it's not just that the wild shape resource is used, because it's the wild shape resource gets used. Also, you are reverted back to your normal form before you take the damage.
Mhm.
So like you used up the shape resource, and you don't even get the like sponge of taking, like
Of
absorbing
the
those
wild
the
shape taking the
damage.
damage.
I think if it were to happen in my table, I think my having experienced it, I think my ruling would be, uh, if I'm going to if I'm going to have it revert a druid,
Mhm.
I would have the damage dealt to the wild shape form
Okay.
first. I think would be my instinct. Um, but I think in the moment it made more sense to do it the way that you did.
And
Um,
my logic there was if it was a doppelganger or a
mhm,
shape changer, it would affect their inherent form because it is their inherent form.
mhm,
So my initial like thought was okay, moonbeam is stripping. It's almost like walking
mhm.
through water. You are immediately feeling the effect of it. So
Sure.
that wild shape is gone
Right.
immediately. I think it also was particularly potent in a 2D space because you
Mhm,
can't just walk around it.
mhm.
Yeah.
You had to pass through
It
it to
cut
get
off
to
whole areas of the
right,
battlefield, yeah.
which like in the moment because we didn't really have a visual like
Mhm,
indicator of it for the
Mhm.
longest time, but like once someone drew a line, I'm like, "Oh, that's literally dividing
mhm.
Mhm.
the screen in half." I mean, you could have wrapped around
Sure.
the arena, but I'm like, that's powerful here,
Yeah.
especially with as many people that we have wild shaping.
100%.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, if it was in a home game where I'm like sitting at home with my friends and it happens in the game, I'm probably gonna bring it up after a game and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like if that's
How'd
the
you
way
feel
that
about this? Yeah.
works, like we need to revisit
Establish.
some stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In a one shot environment like that, it's like, oh, you found an exploit that works for your character. Like that's fantastic. Like well
Mhm.
done. You have found a cheat code that you got to input, which is fantastic. I
Mhm.
love the um like lawful does not mean that you are like following the spirit of the rules. It means you're following the letter of the rules. So if something works, it is legal. But yeah, it was a uh an interesting mechanic to play with.
Mhm.
When they broke out when they finally lost concentration on it and then cast it again, I was like, oh, well, end of game. Like,
Aw.
there's,
I mean, you still made it to
I'm
the top
done.
3, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, but like barely.
It,
Only by my mercy.
Yeah,
yeah.
only because you randomly were like, Hunter has another hit point. Like
What?
I was going to be dead.
It's a fun game mechanic thingy
Mhm,
because the way it is online is that it's just a tag. Like
mhm.
it's literally just like it needs that specific
Yeah.
tag in order to be like a thing.
Mhm.
But you really touched on it when you were like whether or not it's magical or inherent.
Mhm,
Like it is like part of their physicality. Uh, I what rules is written in a regular game, and I think this is just the same thing that happened with my bear attack down. I think that the way you describe it, like a waterfall of like that, I think that if this was in like if my table like it was like on a regular setting, like oh they're not a shape changer because they used magic they're still an elf, they're still a humanoid.
Right.
They just
Mhm.
they just change their physicality. But if it was a game, that's a debuff, and
Mhm.
Right.
debuffs are just you. A programmer isn't gonna like Baldur's Gate. They didn't put all the spells
Mhm.
because it would have been too crazy.
Yeah.
And then some of the spells, they
Unless you
just were like,
download the
let's just
5e spells mod.
There's already
okay.
like 500 spells. That's not enough.
And even then they simplified certain things, just like it does this, it
Mhm.
just blanks. So I think just a
They
like
simplified things to
this,
make it work for a video
yeah,
game.
it
Yeah.
it turns people back. Then it would have just been like disguise self would have worked too. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
anything like that would have just been washed away. And it was after my death that I really started to go like, okay, how else could I have like, that bush?
Mhm.
Like, there was all those little things where I was just
bushes.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
Hunter hid in a bush for a little bit. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's brilliant because you were in that space and using like the beams and the walls.
Mhm.
So it's just, you did a good job, Rosie, setting up like the thing, and
Mhm.
it was up to everybody to take advantage of that and like really like
Yeah.
let their brains soak it up. And the people that did put up beams and knock and use the level effectively,
Yeah.
so it was
I think that was my favorite part about it was
Yeah.
the like everybody was looking at the same image
Yeah.
and interpreting the data differently.
So
and
good. I
like
eat that up.
everybody took different approaches to the same solution. Like even if you look at like two of us were playing multi-class Circle of the Moon druid and totem bear barbarian.
Mhm.
Like we have the same build, took very different approaches to how we wanted to do things. My
100%.
my build was designed to be an ambush predator. Like I was like, I'm going to like hide and I'm going to like get away and set traps and like all of this stuff. Because when I heard Battle Royale, I thought like Hunger Games. I didn't think Smash Brothers.
Which was the initial idea, and then my
No,
spouse
it was
came through, he's like,
so
"Smash
good.
Brothers," and I'm like, "This is so much better."
It was so good. I loved
I
it
thought
so
it was a bait and
much.
switch. I didn't fall. I was like, I'm not gonna fall for it. We're gonna get in there. And I know I've done this before where I've set up like a battle arena thing
Mhm.
and it's minute to win it games. And
Mhm.
I was positive it was gonna be a trivia show or it was gonna be like
Oh
a
my
small
gosh.
quest, like not a small quest, but like a team situation. I was just
You
like,
thought she was gonna
I,
put us into a
I
battle royale, and we weren't
correct.
actually in
I
a
thought
battle
it was
royale.
gonna
No,
be
it's Battle
like a
Royale,
switch.
Battle
Yeah.
Royale.
So I did not make an optimize. Like he ended up having way more combos than I would have thought. Like
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
the hexings, and then I got past spell slots with like class and race features. So
Mhm.
I could have had a lot more ammo if I didn't get out earlier. But I was not tanky. Like I was, the Warlocks went down pretty fast.
The Warlocks did.
Yeah, and that's just he did a better job of hanging back. Because in my head I thought I was flying away. He literally distanced himself to use Eldritch Blast. I almost vehemently fight using Eldritch Blast
Mhm.
because I always want to use like Magic Stone or like another spell that's interesting instead of just like gun. Um, the only time I think it's cool is at a high level when you can like anime blast 15 blasts at one time and then it's just like a barrage and it looks cool. But Rosie, what would you build if you had to go in here and you were just given the prompt,
Yeah.
make a
Oh.
death machine? What would
What's your battle royale character,
what would your
Rosie?
death machine be?
Oh my gosh. Now you have me thinking because I didn't think about this, and my mind immediately wants to go to Druid because that's what everyone else did, and I love
It
Druid.
was a fun build.
Um, I am really keen on sorcerers just because meta
Mhm.
magic has so many applications, and I could see it being used really creatively in the 2D space.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, ooh, I don't think there's a way to combine sorcerers and barbarian, but I think that would be really fun to try.
Interesting.
Well, they like having a high con would not
Yeah.
be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do mostly sorcerer with some barbarian for spice.
I like that.
Mhm.
Like
I
give
do
it
like
just
that.
just a level or two of barbarian.
Yeah, just a level or 2 of barbarian, and the name fails me because it's early, but there's a very specific type of sorcerer I would pick. And it's the one that Hecate took a couple levels in.
Hmm.
It's like Death Sorcerer or Dark Sorcerer.
Sure.
But yeah, they have some really
Shadow
neat
magic or nah?
Shadow.
Was
Yeah.
it? Hmm.
Yes. But just like they have a lot of like you don't quite die yet sort of
Hmm.
mechanics that would be fun and useful in this space for a battle royale.
I like that. I
Yeah.
almost built a warlock fighter
Ooh.
multi-class
Mhm.
to get action surge,
That would have been useful.
and then be take the like repelling blast and agonizing blast to be able to just
Mm.
like hit you and then action surge and hit you again and just push you really far away from me. Yeah, multi-classing is so interesting. It opens up so many different
Oh, for
possibilities.
sure, and combinations
Mm-hmm.
out the wazoo. Like, I only got to use Hegady's, sorcerer level, like, in the very last episode,
Mm-hmm.
that we had, and just having meta magic opened so many doors.
Yeah.
It was wonderful, I
Metamagic's
loved that.
wild.
Yeah.
I will say metamagic at like the level you unlock metamagic at is weird.
Mhm.
Like so because I feel like you unlock sorcery points before you actually have like any metamagic
Things you could.
options.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but
it's
it's only
like
by 1 level.
right, but it's
Yeah,
like
still.
okay, I have sorcery points. The only thing I can do with them is convert them into a spell slot.
Right, which at low levels
Which
isn't the
is
worst thing.
not the worst thing, but like it's weird to like why don't those go together? Why don't I get these at the same time?
Right.
Like that seems like a weird calculation.
Mhm.
Um yeah, it was very entertaining to see what everybody had built. I was very interested in seeing what everybody would come up with. And I found it funny that there were so many similarities between the characters because there were two half orcs,
Mhm.
there were 3 barbarians, 2 multi-classed as druids,
2 dead
two
warlocks.
warlocks.
Yeah.
Like yeah, there were a lot of similarities between the characters.
But no
Um
one came at it the same way, which
no,
was
everybody had very
fascinating to
different
watch.
approaches.
Mhm.
Um I loved it. It was so much fun to like look at all of the mechanics in place and figure out okay, well how do we do this? What's the approach here?
And I really wanted to when I was building the map, because it took me a while to build the map. The map was the last thing, because again, deciding on what sort of arena, because Volcano
Mhm.
Mhm.
was there for the longest. I'm like, I really want to do Volcano. That'd be so cool. But I ended up going with something a little more standard because I didn't want to overwhelm. But I
Mhm.
still
Mm.
feel like I put enough things on that map to interest you all. And everyone used
Oh yeah.
all parts of the map. So like the climbing vines and the ropes that you could swing from platform to
Mhm.
platform and the big button. The button was again Mr. B's idea. He's like, you got to put a big button in there. I'm
You
like, for
gotta.
why? He's like, people will want to press it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh
that
man,
was
there's
so much fun.
there's so many different like stages that you could do.
So many.
Like you had talked about doing like a water one. It'd be cool to do like a water one that had like have the water level at like the middle of the stage and then have like
Ooh,
some underwater and some like in the air stuff,
that would be cool.
so you can like go between them. um you could have like a giant wave that occasionally like crashes across the top to try and push people into the water.
Sprinkles
Ooh.
2.0.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh man, sprinkles. uh every time sprinkles did anything, I was so thankful that I had built Totem of the Bear,
Mm.
because it was like you take like 10 points of pound cake damage and I'm like, that's not psychic.
It's
I
not
guess I
psychic,
have it.
yeah. Oh, that was so silly. Sprinkles was and this is gonna I don't know if any of you all remember or even, like, had it on your radar, the game Adventure Quest from the aughts? Okay, okay.
I literally was talking about Adventure Quest
Last night.
yesterday.
Yep.
That's so funny, but
Yeah.
Sprinkles was heavily inspired by in some of the later like end game battles of Adventure Quest, which feels so ridiculous to say for it being Flash Final Fantasy. There was a dragon that would come down from the sky and like just sweep across the screen. And I remember that so vividly as like a middle schooler going, "Oh, that's terrifying. Let's make it cake."
Let's make it a little more cute.
Let's make it a little more cute and also pay homage to that game that I played 20 years ago.
And like the fact we can't talk about Sprinkles without talking about the fact that Sprinkles hates people that are making death saves.
It all came down to rolls and I felt bad every single time. I felt terrible.
I have on my notes, are you
repeatedly.
okay? Like, why would you do this to us?
I just hate my friends. That's what it comes down to.
Hey, it's fair.
No, it really was a roll of the dice every time. And almost like a ridiculous proportion of the times it was whoever was unconscious
Mhm.
and I felt terrible. I'm like, I can't do this. That's so
Yeah.
mean.
It's like because to your point during the game, it wasn't that they were specifically targeting people who were already down. It was just that like that was who was being rolled because it wasn't every time.
Right.
Some other people got hit as well. It did happen enough that everybody
There
at
was
the
a
table
pattern.
saw the pattern.
Yeah. Oh, it was so funny. And like Sprinkles had their own roll table for like different attacks
Mhm.
and they were all birthday themed. So like it was always a D4 for what type of attack Sprinkles would use. If I rolled a 4, it was called and many more. And then Sprinkles got to attack twice.
Ooh.
That's
It
really
was
good.
great. I loved like that was my little like I know this isn't in Smash Brothers, but like I want it because I remember Adventure Quest and I just want a dragon and it's my birthday.
It's
Yeah.
not in Smash Brothers, but it is reminiscent of and like Master Hand, which is
Mm.
a thing in Smash Brothers, which is this like giant white glove essentially that like comes and attacks. So it is like for something that isn't in Smash Brothers, you did make something that felt very in line with
Yeah.
Smash
Had the
Brothers.
vibe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Or like in Smash Brothers, there's the items that are like a little trophy case thing, and you open it up, and like some like entity pops out and like fights for you. Or like there was one, I think it was on the Wii one, where the one of the puppies from Nintendogs would just
Yes,
like
it would take
jump
up most
and
of the
just start
screen. Yeah.
was like
I've seen that.
right
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
screen. It's just like licking the screen. It just makes it really difficult to see. Like
Mhm.
it could be one of those things as well. Which is also an item that would be fun is just an item that pops up that like almost like a Pokeball, but like sometimes it's just Sprinkles and he attacks everybody. There I love in Smash Bros. There's several items that are like not good items, like they're not useful to you. Like there's one of the mushrooms from Mario that like makes you big, but there's also one that looks almost identical, that instead of making you big makes you small.
Oh
Like
no.
I love the idea of having items in the game that are like not good. Like they're just, some of them are detrimental
It's
to the person that picks them up.
and it makes everybody think twice because everybody's
Right.
gonna be going for something, and it's just like, ooh, do I want this one? Oh man, that cheeseburger looks good, but what's it gonna do to me? Like like a
Right.
flaming Smash Bros. Like it's like a flaming bowl, like it's a spicy bowl. Something when you eat it, you're shooting out fire. So it's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's hot, but you're shooting out fire perpetually in addition to your moves. So it's just like, all right, I can understand the spicy thing. What's a cheeseburger do? What's that gonna
Mhm.
do to me, good or bad? Extra life, or am I slippery all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Am I just greased up?
Yeah.
And that's
The
kind of what the button was for, because the button was
Mhm.
half good, half
Yeah.
bad things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I put it out there, and how can you not press a
Yeah.
big red button?
Yeah.
So having that in the middle, and it was so funny seeing from the get-go who went for the button and who's like, no, I'm just getting up onto the bridge because that's the safest spot, or it
Hmm.
gives me better vantage point, or oh, there's items up on the bridge. That
Yeah.
was fun to like just that was a little like ad hoc psych eval. Who's doing
Yeah.
what?
Hmm.
How do
It was
y'all's
good.
brains work?
I wish I would have thought about the 2D stuff before, like, I went first.
Hmm.
So I wish I would have thought about the 2D stuff uh before I had to make my turn, because my immediate first move was I like jump. I cast jump on myself and jump
Hmm.
up there. And immediate like the next person was like, okay, well, are these towers like climbable? I was so proud of myself for like, I got up to that platform, it's going to be difficult for people to get up here. And then it was like, I just climb up there, I fly, like all these things. I was like, well, I wasted a spell. I
Cool
rage, I
beans.
dropped concentration on my spell anyway.
And that was one of the things, and it's something that I did have from the get-go as like a solid mechanic was you were not going to get penalized for climbing
Hmm.
because it just wouldn't feel fair because on a normal top down view, land is land is land. You traverse laterally.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that people could that climbing cost the same. So
Right.
I did like climbing is movement is movement is movement.
Hmm.
Jumping is going to follow raw, but climb however
Well,
much you want.
even with jumping though, you allowed for like,
Yeah.
if you want to jump down, like you can jump down, like make an athletics check, and it's just like, do you make the check or not?
Mhm.
At which point, like you either take damage or you don't.
Right.
Which made it traversing around substantially easier,
Easier.
because it was like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to like jump down and attack, instead of like going all the way over here and climbing down. Like I can just jump.
Mhm.
Especially because like I had a high athletics score, so I was like, okay, I can just kind of jump around in here. I don't have to worry about like uh being pinned down if
Right.
I need to. um where it would have been very easy for you to be like, okay, jumping is going to be a bonus action, or like you have to make a like an athletics check, and that's part of like that is your action to do, or
Right.
something like
Just
that.
having it be part of the movement made sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I liked that ruling a lot. And I feel like even in a regular game, that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of times where I've been in games where uh the a check that's being made is like, oh well, that can be your action. And I was like, well, I'm never gonna do it as my action. Like
Right.
I've had situations where I was the player and also as a GM, where it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to like make an insight check on the person, or roll a history check or something like that to see like what you know, you can do that, but that's your action. And it's like, that feels bad.
It feels
Like
so cheap.
it feel like, yeah, I guess I won't engage with the story, because like I don't want to lose a turn to do that thing.
Mhm.
um but I liked the way you did it, of like, we're just incorporating it into the general gameplay and the movement and all of that. So like, what do you want to do it?
Mhm.
Awesome.
And I feel like that's in general my playstyle. Like you all have I've GM'd for you both a couple
Hmm.
times, and I will always prioritize fun. If a rule gets in the way of fun, it's not a good rule for that particular session. And this
Hmm.
session was a little bit different as
Hmm.
far as how movement worked. So, yeah, of course, like let's switch it up to make sense and make it still fun for this game.
I know
That's always fun.
we're over
Ah!
time, and I appreciate you for hanging out. I
Yeah.
do have one other question about the just, and it may be that you don't have any additional stuff, but for the like 2D environment, because
Mhm.
I found that to be a very fun like mechanic to play with. Did you have any like uh rules or like mechanics that you had set up specifically with that in mind, to facilitate the gameplay in it?
Ooh. Again, the climbing one comes to mind.
Sure.
The wraparound mapping comes to
Hmm.
mind. Um, really, a lot of the other D&D rules as written worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Within that space. Nothing so hard and fast as like an actual rule, because a lot of that had to be done ad hoc as you
Mhm.
all presented new and creative solutions to abusing the map. um, but yeah, no, it was a very general set of rules just to ensure that it worked.
Sure.
Because it was just that little bit different from a normal top-down view map. Just a little bit on its side.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think that that's great. Like a lot of fantastic mechanics can be put into place and then kind of like fine tune it as the game evolves. Like
Mhm.
when you have a moonbeam that's like, oh, it plays differently in a 2D space. Like this is now like cutting off these sections, or
Right.
when you have an eldritch blast that knocks somebody off the side of the map, and you have to figure out, okay, well, where do they land?
What's
Because
the trajectory?
they went
Yeah, doing the
diagonally this
angles,
way.
like,
Do they come out
yeah.
The
over here? Do
protractor,
they come
yeah.
up here? Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Could I have used like plane shift or something to go to the third or fourth dimension?
Yeah, we just, like, flip it to so that you're a straight line.
Yeah,
And where
like
did they
something where
go? Ooh,
That's
I
interesting.
dodge now. I
that would
dodge
be
moonbeam.
You
fun.
have to be higher
Like,
level, but
I'm
yeah,
not in this dimension anymore.
yeah.
Oh, that would be cool to play with for next time for
It's
sure.
it's
Oh
plane
my
shift,
gosh.
but it's just instead of being on the x-axis, you're on the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
y-axis. You're
you
just
now you're
laying
on,
down flat on the
the
ground, and they
depth
can't see you
axis
anymore.
instead of, like, height and width.
Oh man, there's so many different ways you could
oh, do
play
I
it.
have it? Okay. Okay. I have to get somebody a key real fast.
All good.
So
We'll
you
we'll
start
wrap
wrapping. I'll
up.
hopefully be back before you get back. But yeah, it's like, yep.
um Rosie, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks
Thank you.
for being here.
Sure.
Appreciate you. It was a fantastic time. I am absolutely stealing the 2D
Please do.
mechanic for a future nonsense.
Get it.
Because it was so fun to like play within that space.
Mhm.
And I have several groups that I'm like, ooh, they are very like meticulous. Like they're very like, okay, I know my abilities, I know like how they interact with the world, and I can absolutely see them losing their minds if I put them into a space where things just work differently.
Right.
Um if you're watching the show right now, or you're listening to the show or whatever, send us spells and abilities and stuff that you think work weirdly in a 2D space. Because
Those spheres,
I'm
those cubes, those
yeah,
cones.
there's so many. Because I'm so curious, because there's
Mm.
like I could absolutely see taking a party and putting them into a 2D space for like putting like a boss fight that it happens in this 2D space. Like they warp reality around them to be this 2D fight. And a boss who exists in that space would absolutely know how everything works
Mhm.
in
Mm.
that space. So they would be using the stuff that works to their advantage in a 2D space. I love the concept of it. So send us ideas, send us spells and abilities, and if there's monsters that behave weirdly in a 2D space, like the one that came to mind immediately for me is, like you mentioned, that the iron flask almost came out. A
Yeah.
beholder's anti-magic cone is terrifying in a 2D space because you can't move around them without being in it.
Right. So,
Um,
again, the same way Moonbeam was, it would cut off whole
yeah.
swaths of the
It'd
map.
just be a bunch of fans, like a bunch of like
Yeah.
fan cones, like of these
hmm
eyes where they're positioned.
There's
It would be a
some
mess. Yeah.
devastating ramifications to 2D
Mhm.
in D&D stuff. So send those to us if you think of them. If you're sitting at home and have ideas, send them to me so I can plot. Rosie, you've watched the show. We do calls to action at the end of the episode. I would love if you would give us 3 calls to action for this week.
All right. Call to action 1. Find a safe way to get your friends to fight. It is fun.
Yes,
That's a sentence.
love that.
Call to action number 2. Find your favorite D20
Mm.
and contemplate its flaws. Contemplate what makes
Ooh.
it both symmetrical, and then contemplate what makes it not so symmetrical. And
Love
number
that.
3, buy a 1-pound bag of shelled peanuts and share it with your local corvids.
Addendum, as long as you don't have a
Unsalted.
peanut allergy.
Yes, don't have a peanut
and
allergy and buy unsalted.
and make sure that you're not doing it in like a public park where other people might have peanut
Throwing
allergies.
peanuts at
Right.
people, peanut allergies. Rosie, please.
Yes.
But I love that. That's so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on, Rosie. Thank you for having us on last week. Just an absolute delight, as always. For the rest of you, have a great week. We will be back on Friday. Come join us for more nonsense. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Remember to embrace the nonsense, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.